And we are live, man. Welcome into the Bluebloods official podcast of FCS Football Central. Myself, my guy, Coach Leroy, Frederick, man, out there on the golf cart again. Way too hot for all that again. But as we told you guys, we're going live every single day. Talk about y'all's biggest hot takes, man. I mean, Coach, if I'm not mistaken, I think we had about 100 comments on the Facebook page. The Reddit thread had about 80 to 100 comments, and Twitter, man, we had so many replies and quote tweets and everything, man. We probably could do a show every day for a month.
Man, keep them coming, y'all. We appreciate it.
You might want to go to your headphones, man. You glitching out now.
Okay.
Yeah, Coach is gonna get his headphones together, man. I'm gonna mute him while he does that. But man, we got 10 hot takes today, guys. So if you didn't tune into yesterday's episode or last year's episode, me and Coach got 10 hot takes. We're gonna rate them on the hot take scale. 10 for your hottest take, one for, man, you didn't really get the message on what you were supposed to do here. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about how likely it is that thing it is done. So we'll see how that is, man. So if you got any other hot takes, man, you can submit them in the chat. You can comment them underneath this video. You can find our post across social media. Do all that good stuff, man. Submit your hot takes. We're gonna start here as Coach gets his stuff together, man. We're because I saved the one that I think he's gonna be most interested in for last. We got our guy Colby Peterson, man. Shout out to man, him. He's a big supporter of the channel, man. Got to meet him at Chattanooga 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, man. They sponsor the player of the week, everything like that, man. So shout out to Colby. His bold prediction for next year is Trey Lamb, head coach over at ETSU, leads the Bucks to a 9-3 record and earns an FCS playoff bid in his first season as head coach. I'll I'll say this. I think ETSU is probably the hardest team to project, especially because we've seen especially at the FCS level, we've seen teams have very mixed results, bringing in a whole bunch of transfers. But the unique thing with ETSU is they just brought transfers that are proven at the FCS level. They brought a bunch of transfers that made a run to the FCS playoffs last year, and I mean, they looked really, really good doing it last year, and they had a top defense. I think offense could take a step forward, but they started a true freshman quarterback in Jalen King. He's now at ETSU. You're talking about an ETSU team that 2-3 years ago was just a top 8 seed in the FCS playoffs too. That program has support. It has the resources. I think 9-3, Colby, might be a little bit too high. So that's why I think this bold take is probably about a 6 or a 7. But in terms of the second part of your question, I I personally think that getting to the FCS playoffs, and we got coach back now, getting to the FCS playoffs is not a bold take. I think ETSU can do it. I think the SoCon coach gets about 3 bids this year. So I'm going to say that the first part of his question or bold take is very bold. The second part, not so much. How do you feel, coach?
I'll go with you. I heard part of that. Still no.
Yeah, still no. Yeah, you sound all robotic. Let's see if we can get Coach hooked up here, man. It was working before the show, man. This is tough, Coach. We got to get you like a remote mic that you can wear like on your shirt. But as Coach figures that out, man, just to expand on that too, they added an All-American linebacker and William McRaney. They added a corner. I really like Cam Sims out of Mercer. I do think they're going to be really good. Now he said, 3 of the losses. One I think was an FBS loss. He said they're going to lose to Furman and they're going to lose to North Dakota State. One of the other bold takes, I think it's on tomorrow's episode or maybe the episode after that. I don't remember how I organized it, but a lot of people think ETSU is going to make that a game. I don't know if I think that might be too hot of a take, to be honest with you. I don't see ETSU beating North Dakota State next year. So as I move on here, our guy Arnold from X or Twitter Prairie View A&M earns an at-large bid to the FCS playoffs. Now, I thought this was a very interesting one because we kind of talked about potential at-large bids for HBCUs yesterday out of the SWAC. I don't think we mentioned Prairie View, and I don't think Prairie View is a team that a lot of people think about. It just here's where Prairie View is going to get caught up is that they have really solid out of conference game against Incarnate Word. Coach, we back?
Man, that guy, that's what I get for trying something new.
That's perfect, man. Well, we moved on to the second one, Coach. I know you
Yeah.
are interested in this one. Prairie View A&M earns an at-large bid to the playoffs.
No
No chance?
No chance.
I look at their schedule, Coach. Now, what would probably have to happen, honestly, is that they'd have to win every game on their schedule outside of Michigan State. Obviously, you're probably not beating Michigan State on the road. And then they would have to probably lose to you guys on the 16th. And you guys win the SWAC with one loss, either undefeated in the SWAC or one loss. That would be the only way I think Prairie View would get in. Because they'd be 10-2 with a out of conference win over Incarnate Word on the road, that's probably a ranked win if I'm not mistaken.
That would be a good win. Yeah.
That would be the only way, in my opinion, that PV gets in, and that's to me not going to happen. I think that's a very, very bold take. I do think PV is going to be one of the favorites in the SWAC West. We've talked about that. I think it's Alcorn PV. So, Coach, on the boldness scale, I think that's probably an 8 or a 9. Likeliness probably a 2.
Yeah, I'd go 8, and probably 1.5. A lot of things would have to go right. I'm talking about a lot of things would have to go right for that to happen. Not hate, but I'm just saying a lot of things would have to go right for that.
Yeah, I had, because I mean, Coach, if we're doing bold takes from yesterday, there's people thinking that Fam and Jackson could both win 10 games, and if that happens, I don't think Alcorn and PV are winning 9-10 games too. I don't think there's ever been 4 teams in one conference that win double digits.
What did he tell us? 1954 or something like that?
Yeah, very unlikely. But this goes for our guy Sam Herder, man. Shout out to Sam, Hero Sports.
Sam.
We're not launching our new show, man, but I'm stepping in as the co-host starting next week on his podcast over there at Hero Sports, man. So shout out to Sam. Coach, this is a bold one. South Dakota State and North Dakota State. Now, the Jacks play Oklahoma State. North Dakota State obviously plays Colorado, like we all know. Sam says they lose by 9 or more points in week 1. Both of them have to lose by 9 or more. Your thoughts?
Man, I'm going to take the under. I don't think both of them lose by that. I think one has a really good chance of winning. They both do, but I think one has a really good chance of winning. I think it's going to be must-see TV for the one program. But I probability of that happening, very, very, very slim. 2-ish.
I can see that. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, Coach, I would have said that this was extremely bold, very unlikely. But with the reported injuries coming out of Fargo for North Dakota State, I'm kind of leaning that way now. I don't know if this is very bold anymore, Coach, because let's put it like this, and we'll spend a little bit of time on this one, and we'll get through some of the other ones quicker. You know this, Coach, as an FCS coach, we don't have the same depth because of the scholarship limit.
Right.
So we can't afford to have injuries. Like, if Colorado was missing 2 starters, it's fine. Yeah. But North Dakota State might be missing their All-American safety for the entire season, and definitely week 1. They might be without their starting running back, and they could be without another starter. If you're missing 3 starters as an FCS team, the odds of you knocking off an FBS school that's fully healthy right now decreases so much.
But how good is that? How good is the FBS team that they're facing? I think that goes into play as well. And again, just judging by what it was last year, I mean, the team they're playing has to do they've got to do a a complete 360, so to speak, to, I think, combat what this game is building up to be just because of where they were, the hype behind all that stuff. So I think it's doable. I got to believe that there's more than one running back in the room that
I
can
hope
tote the
so.
mail, quality back in that room that can tote the mail for that program. So I'm still going to say, I just can't see both of them doing that.
Bold on the boldness scale, probably a 3 or a 4 for me. I don't think it's super bold. I wouldn't be super surprised. I mean, because do I think
FBS game.
Do I think South Dakota State's good enough to hang around and make it competitive? Yes, absolutely. But let's not forget the team they're playing was what, one game away from winning the Big 12 last year, and it's a preseason top 25. And I'm gonna say this, Coach, I'll go on record and we'll move on. If South Dakota State wins that game, pack it up. If you're Montana, if you're North Dakota State, if you're Villanova, get your NIL dollars together and redshirt your best players because you're playing for second this year. If that team beats, if South Dakota State beats Oklahoma State, coach, it's over. It's just a race to see who goes to Frisco to get their heads beat in by this team. Do you know the momentum they're going to have? Because you're talking about if they win this game, 30 consecutive victories. Their last loss was a 1-point loss to Iowa, 3 years ago?
That's big time. I want to see it happen.
No, I do too. That would be such a big
I
win
want to
for the
see it happen.
FCS.
Yeah, I want to see it
Massive.
happen. I want it to be competitive. I want it to be under 9.
Agreed. Now, this is interesting, Coach. I'm sure you've heard of the S&P Plus rankings. Bill Conley for ESPN that does all the advanced analytics for ESPN. He has North Dakota State and Colorado ranked the 61st and 62nd best teams in the country. They're one spot apart. The highest ranked team in the country is South Dakota State at 50. So you never know. You never know. Now, this one, I'll say this. Our guy, Steve Bruce, this one could be interesting. South Dakota quarterback Aiden Bowman shocks the world and wins to Walter Payton. Coach, real quick, thoughts on this?
Unless the other kid up there gets hurt, I don't see that happening. Just because of the command that he has of that team, of that offense. Sleepers do emerge. Voters do get tired of voting for what we consider the all favorites, but I don't see that one now. He'd have to go on a heck of a run, an assault on all record books to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I don't probability. Nah.
I'm gonna say this. It's bold, probably a 9 for me. Likeliness probably a 1. just because, and Coach, it's not because Aiden Bowman isn't talented. Like, the kid is probably a top 10 quarterback in the FCS, but it's all about scheme. He's not in a scheme that puts up a lot of stats. Coach, they play in the slowest offense in the nation at any level.
Yeah,
he's not
playing in a run and shoot.
No. And also, too, he's not a dual threat guy. So you don't have the added thing. He's rushed for a negative 125 yards in his career. So it's all in the passing, and they just don't pass the ball that much. Coach, last year, he started every game, threw for 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 picks in 13 games.
Yeah, that ain't going to get it done.
No, I agree.
Not in that award race. Let me put it that way.
No, not when you have Kerwin Bell throwing the ball 75 times a game with Cole Gonzalez, and then you got the guy up the street and Mark Gronowski. So now, Coach, this one's a big one, man. Shout out to our guy Tom, man, works up in the Big Sky office. I love how he interacts with all the shows and the media at the FCS level. He says 2 Big Sky programs will play in the FCS National Championship game.
I don't think that's very bold.
Yeah, especially when you got both Montana schools representing that conference.
Yeah, because I really thought we were going to see that last year. And then, the injury bug hit the one program. But no, not very bold. Probability of that happening, 6-ish. Yeah, 6.5, 7-ish. The one program that I think can make it happen, they get late in the year, and it's always a key injury or something that changes, their fortune. But, I think it can definitely happen.
Yeah, I do too. Because now, hear me out, Coach. There's a chance that I think both Montana schools, depending now, obviously you would have to have something crazy happen with the Dakotas, but let's say South Dakota State, North Dakota State lose their FBS games week 1. And then, North Dakota State beats South Dakota State, then North Dakota State slips up somewhere. They got 2 losses. There's a chance with the schedule that Montana State have that those teams could be undefeated going into the Brawl of the Wild in the last week of the year. And Montana State has a chance to pick up an FBS win week 0 against New Mexico. Coach, they're 8.5-point favorites over an FBS team.
I was going to say, now that's doable. That one is very doable. That one is very doable.
I don't think this is bold. Probably a 3, just because 3 or a 4, just because the Dakota schools have shown that in the postseason they can get it done. Now, if Montana hosts the game, man, I think that probably increases the likelihood. So, not too bold. Likeliness,
Heck yeah.
Somewhere around the 6 or a 7. I wouldn't be surprised. I do think it's a marker game instead, but if it's not, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Big Sky represent in Frisco. But this one, same old E from social media, Coach, on Twitter. Tennessee State will beat Howard at Howard's homecoming in week 8.
That's not very bold.
Yeah, I don't think that's bold
at all. And that's very, very likely to happen.
Yeah, I think, Coach, if I'm not mistaken, we were doing the previews. I'm pretty sure we both picked Tennessee State in the preseason to win this game when we were doing record predictions.
Yeah.
Especially because you got that game. So that's the last game that Howard plays before they open up conference play, and they travel to Norfolk the next week.
Yep.
And where are they at, too, going into that game? Because, Coach, early, they got Rutgers. So what? That's probably 0-1. They'll beat Mercyhurst and Morehouse. Do you beat Hampton this year? Do you get over that hump? Do you win at Princeton? If you got 3 losses going into the bye week, and God forbid you get upset by Sacred Heart, I don't know what the
morale is around the place.
Yeah. So I think Tennessee State's going to be really good this year. I've said this. I've kind of been driving the bandwagon, into the cliff the past few years. So I'm still going to stick with my Tigers. But I will say, if Howard does beat Tennessee State, I think that's a massive win for that program and the momentum they carry over to conference play.
And I'm with you, but I think, and when we were talking about this is usually around that time where Tennessee State has their fall off.
Yep.
And I gotta believe that they have circled this part of the schedule and gonna fix it. Gonna figure out what they've been doing leading up to this week to the fall off and changing it. So I gotta believe that that's gonna happen. And this is one of those years that, as people say, man, they're supposed to be pretty good. So I gotta believe that they'll have it fixed by this week.
And I agree with Lawrence in the chat. If Tennessee State really wants to make a postseason run, that's a must-win game. Got to beat Howard. Now, this one's interesting. AZ Dogs Days from Reddit. A team from the SoCon makes a run to the semifinals.
Ooh. Because I think everybody there has major questions.
So maybe Chattanooga would be your best. I think because Chattanooga was the preseason favorite, then you had Furman, then you got Western Carolina there. I mean, do you see any of those 3 making it all the way to the semis?
And that's, and what we said about Western Carolina, they've got to figure out how the new pieces fit with their QB. The quarterback situation with Furman. And again, the semis are a long way away from the start of the season, but I don't know,
I'll say this. Okay. I think if a team does it, it's probably Chat. But here's what I'm worried about with Chattanooga. They opened the season, Coach, at Tennessee and at Georgia State. So if you don't win an FBS game, you're 0-2. And, Coach, this is what I hated about the FAMU Jackson game. Week 3, they play freaking Mercer, which is a crucial conference game in week 3.
Early. And we all know how those early conference games come back to bite you late.
And then They got they got a bye week. They'll play Portland State, which is a tricky Big Sky team coming in. But then they got back-to-back road games against ETSU and Furman. If you split those, which is more likely than you win in both, and they got to go to Western Carolina. So you played the three best SoCon teams on the road, and you got a last week road game against Austin P to end the season. Coach, are they going to have a bye week? Are they going to be good enough to host later in the playoffs? Because I think if Chat could host and get maybe a 2-3 seed, I'd feel differently. But man, they might have to make a run to the semis in this situation, going on the road the whole time, which is extremely unlikely.
Tough. Just because of travel alone, I think it becomes tough to do that because you assume, and we all know what they say about assuming, but you assume the road to the semis and the championship, you're going to have to go out west. And that's back-to-back type trips. If you win one, then you got to come back and go the next week. You know what I mean? Lord forbid you got to go to Idaho, in between all of that. So, that would be a tough run, but they're going to have to get home field, like you said, in order to make that. But they've got to be able to survive early in order to even get to the conversation of having home field.
Real quick. Now, here's a team that I'm not predicting this, so let's pause in the chat a little bit about this. They're not beating NC State week 1. That's a top 25 team. But what if Western Carolina beats Campbell, beats Elon, upsets Montana? That's a
different
team
conversation.
That then they might be able to host some games in the playoffs. That'd be different. That's a long shot. So this is a bold take for me, Coach. Probably 8 or 9 on the bold scale. 2-3 likeliness scale for me on this one. We got to hit these last 3 pretty quick, Coach. I know you got to get out of here about 15 minutes. This one's big. And Coach, I want to say this. This submission was not from a Jackson State fan. This submission was from an FBS fan that's in the Reddit FCS group. Jackson State beats UL-Monroe by 10 or more and wins 10 games in 2024. Coach, your thoughts on this one?
A 10 or more.
That's
it's a large number. We both said that game is a winnable game.
Yes.
But when you start getting upward of 10 points, now we're talking blowout fashion type thing, and I don't know. So because we both said it's doable, I'm going to say 7. The 10 wins, I'm going to back that down to about a 4. They have a tough road to hoe. You know what I mean? When you're talking 10 wins or more. So I'm going to put that at like a 4.
So I do want to put this out here, Coach. UL-Monroe ranks 185th in the ESPN S&P Plus rankings. That's behind Portland State, who won 3 games last year. 5 games last year. That's behind Southeastern Louisiana, who won 3 games last year. That's behind Fordham. That's behind Western Carolina. That's behind Abilene Christian. That's behind FAMU. That's behind Mercer. That's behind Dartmouth. They do not think UL-Monroe is going to be a good team next year, Coach. And I talked to I'm going to say a SWAC coach, and just that way people don't call this person out. I talked to him about UL-Monroe. He said that his school relies on Mississippi JUCOs a lot for recruiting. He said this is the first year that they've lost out on JUCO talent for a team in the FBS level because UL-Monroe rebuilt their roster using strictly Mississippi JUCO players.
I can believe it, man. We have a lot of those kids on campus for recruiting, and I'll just be straight up. It's
Timothy with the bomb. Bud Elliott for CBS. I think it's 247 or CPS Sports. He said ULM has the talent of a JUCO team.
I was scared to ask where we ranked in that S&P, but anyway, it's tough because they do. And like I said, we have a lot of those same kids on campus. They try to sell the fact that, hey, we're Division I. We sell the fact that, okay, yeah, you can go FBS, but I mean, you're going to get your eyes beat in every weekend, play in front of 20 people. come have a better college experience here. Come have a better college experience over at Sanford.
Yeah.
It it's tough on them, but at the same token, I mean, they're still going to get kids. They still have more scholarships. Um, I can see them winning the game, but I got to put it at about a 4 of them winning
10
10
plus is
plus.
a lot. 10 plus is a lot of points. I've been the person that's been pushing this. Like, obviously Jackson fans are confident. And hey, Miss Veronica, man, appreciate you tuning in. Jackson fans are always confident. Let's just put it like that. Jackson
Oh,
fans
yeah.
think they can win every game, and I don't expect anything less from any fans. That's what makes college football so great. Fans are irrational sometimes, and I love it, and I wish more fan bases were like that. But I don't think they're crazy on this one, Coach. I was one of the first people to come out and say, I think Jackson's the better team in this game.
Yeah.
Coach, I really do think there might be. I think ULM would struggle to make it to the quarterfinals this year if they were in the FCS.
I can believe that. But I know games now
They
that
could
it
keep
would
the
be tough.
scholarship. They could keep the scholarships too. I don't think they would even. I don't know if they would compete in the SoCon. I just don't know if they're that good.
Can't wait to see it.
No, I can't wait. But no, for bold take, I don't think it's that bold. I think it's like 5 or 6, maybe like right in the middle of the road. And I now 10 games. That's so tough. I do think, Coach, I think when we did our prediction, I said I'm around 9 or 10, but 10 is like the high point because it's hard to win 10 games in college football nowadays.
Period.
It
And
is
plus their schedule.
brutal. So I think that's a little bit more bold, but likeliness, I mean, I think Jackson beats ULM. I just don't know if it's by 10 plus. So we'll leave it at that. And I can't wait to preview that game, man. Cannot wait to preview it because this will be a quick one. And shout out to ST Lawson, man. I love when fan bases have a sense of humor when their team sucks. He said after 2.5 straight winless seasons,
2.5.
He said Western Illinois has a breakout season and wins 2 games this year, Coach.
Hey, you got to pull up the schedule because I just don't see it, man. We got to pull up the schedule. I just don't see it.
I'm pulling it up now, but that's hilarious.
We got to break it down. 2.5.
Oh my God! He said we're gonna have a breakout season to get them to win
2 games. Oh man!
All right, Coach, you ready to go through this with me? They got Northern Illinois, Indiana,
probably not happening.
At Illinois State,
probably not happening.
No, McKendree, which I think is an NAIA program, so they'll probably get that one.
Better get that one.
Listen, if they lose to McKendree,
yeah, it's no chance for 2.
Shut it down.
It's no chance for 2.
They get into conference play here. They have at Charleston Southern. I think that maybe we'll see. Probably not. UT Martin, definitely not. Tennessee Tech, probably not. Lindenwood, maybe. Former D2 team, but that's on the road.
Gotta get that one.
Lindenwood or Charleston Southern. Then they go at Eastern Illinois, not happening. Tennessee State, probably not happening. At SEMO, probably not happening. And then Gardner-Webb, which is an interesting team, Coach. They've returned like 1 starter on that team, but I don't know about that one. So
you got to get the McKendree. If you don't get that one.
Oh man, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for this. I mean, Western Illinois, Coach, if they lose to McKendree, I demote them. I bring up West Texas A&M, bring up Ferris State, Harding, bring up Delta State, West Florida. I can't have that happen, man. Now, this, Coach, I saved this one for last, just for you, and it's a 2-parter. The second part is for you guys. Our guy Sherman Miller. The first part's crazy. He said Mississippi Valley State goes 6-2 in conference and wins the SWAC East. And then his second prediction is Alcorn State finally breaks through and wins the Celebration Bowl. And he said obviously he has y'all beating Valley in the SWAC championship.
I like it. The probability of the 6-2.
0.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I gotta
go.
Coach Anderson. Coach Anderson, I know you watching. I love you, bro. I know we talked on the phone last night. It ain't happening. 6-2 is crazy.
Gotta go low. Gotta go low. Gotta go low on that. I'm not gonna go 0 like you. I'm gonna go at least 1. Us winning the celebration, finally breaking through. I love it.
I love G. G said he's a genius. He said crowd him. He knows what he's talking about. Valley to the chip.
I love it.
Oh, I
I
think the
love
Valley
it.
one's obviously a one, man. I don't think Valley's won 6 conference games since what, 84? That year they played Alcorn in the vet
Yeah.
with Jerry Rice and Totten
80
and all that.
80,000 folks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the Alcorn one. Now here's what I'll say. Projecting anyone from the SWAC to win the celebration right now, I think is kind of bold, just because it's such a toss up because you got Alcorn PV in the West, you got Bama State, FAMU, Jackson in the East. It's just I just it's gonna be a battle. So I do think it's probably somewhere around the 4 or 5 range, at least 5 or 6 maybe. But I do think because Alcorn's a favorite in the West, if you say PV or Alcorn wins the Celebration Bowl, I'm fine with that because they're a favorite in the West. But I do think that, Coach, projecting, I want to ask you this because you've coached around the SWAC for a while now. Stephen Gaither put out a tweet that said he believes, let's just say, he said in his lifetime, I think Stephen's in his 30s, but let's just say in the last 10, 15 years, has there ever been a year where you feel like the SWAC has been more of a toss-up?
Not here recently.
No, definitely not recently. It's what you had FAM last year, who everyone thought FAM was running it. Then you had Jackson with Prime 2 years. Then the year before you had to kill Glass, and half the league didn't play anyway in the COVID year. In 2019, you guys were running stuff, had y'all's little run, and then also
we
too
were.
Southern. Southern had a good little run there for a while too. Grambling with Kincaid was before that. And then you guys, what was it? Noah Johnson before that? If the little Alcorn run before that. So yeah, G said 2013. Was that because that's what right before y'all, because y'all won in 2014, right?
Yep, 2013. Missed the championship game by 2 points. I think Alabama A&M went from the East that year. Or was that the year? No, Southern went because I think that was the year that the kid from Jackson caught the ball and had 1 foot out of bounds and 1 foot in
one where he stepped out of the back of the end zone.
Yeah, for the win or whatever. And Southern won that game.
Yeah, it was Jackson State in 2013. Jackson State was out of the East. Southern was in the West.
Yep. So missed that, and then we went on a run from 2014 to 2019 in the championship game.
Yeah, and y'all ran into Grambling that little run there when they had Kincaid.
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody ran into Grambling during that run.
Everybody. He didn't discriminate. He gave everybody that business. So no, here recently, man. It's
maybe now the one year I was thinking maybe was 2010. That was the year Alabama State and Texas Southern met. I know it ended up being vacated, but maybe that year.
Yeah, that was unknown.
Or the year that what and I know a JSU fan in the chat will correct me. What year was it that UAB beat Jackson? It was in like the early 2010s, 2012, maybe that year.
12.
Because was UAPB like a preseason favorite?
I don't think they were preseason favorite that year. They had a quarterback and a receiver that just went crazy in the league.
Yeah. And real quick, and we'll get out of here. Yeah, G said 2012. Travis, it's not that it's going to be easy. Like in FBS, winning any game is hard in college football. But when you look at the talent on the roster and you look at all the question marks of ULM, I think it's not just a Jackson thing. I saw Kev put in there that we think it's because Jackson's that good. I do think Jackson's going to be good. Coach, if y'all were playing ULM, if FAM was playing ULM, if Bama State was playing ULM, I'd feel the same way. I just don't think ULM is going to be very good. That is a winnable game for a majority of teams that are put together at the FCS level. It's more that I just don't think ULM is going to be very good. Based on the film I've seen, the research I've done, I don't think it's good. But I do want to reiterate, maybe I do a bad job of speaking about it like it's going to be a difficult thing because we're on a show, and all that. Winning any FBS game on the FCS level is tough.
Yeah, don't matter.
But FCS schools have shown the ability to prove that they're the better team on the field over and over and over again. Every single year, there's times where that's done, and I think this is one of them. And shout out to Kevin, man. We got to get you on the show, Kev. I need to reach out to you and get you on the show. And depth is always an issue, Travis.
Yes.
Depth is always an issue, but I also don't think ULM has good depth.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand or may not know the scholarship differential. When it comes to that, the coaching number, when it comes to that. So, we went to South Alabama, and they had, outside of their 11 coaches, they had 15 analysts, GAs, line to sideline, and each one of them had a notepad for a particular spot during our warm-up. So, those are things that stack up against us when we go to that level to play that game. 85 scholarships versus however you want to do your 65 scholarships. So, those numbers do come into effect, especially late in the ball game. Even if it may not be quality, it's still a fresh body that's running out there for play 5, for his 5th rep versus your guy that's been out there for 40 reps. So It does make a difference.
Yeah, their DN might play 35 snaps. Malachi Bailey's playing all 70.
Especially if it's important and it's tight.
Yes, exactly. And we hope, man, I'm hoping, Coach, I don't know what game I would look to. I'm hoping the SWAC gets more than one. And I'm hoping the FCS hits double digits again. Last year was a bad year for upsets. So, look, man, Coach has got to get back to coaching fall camp. They got a scrimmage tomorrow, man. So we're going to get out of here. Hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure to submit your hot takes. Me and Coach will be back tomorrow after the scrimmage, man. So stay tuned for that. But for Coach Leroy Frederick, for myself, for the Blue Bloods FCS Football Central, man, we out for right now.